Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Policy and Resources Committee, which has been conducted from the Chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. Translation facilities are available for this meeting, and please ensure that you have your headsets if required. Please also ensure your microphones are off, and before I begin, I will ask Councillor Gordon Murray to lead us in prayer. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Lord God and Heavenly Father, we give thanks that we have a renewed opportunity to approach thy throne of grace at this time in our meeting. Lord, bless this meeting and all our deliberations in fulfilling the duties that we are responsible for. Lord, we seek wisdom and understanding and your guidance in the issues before us today. We come to you, Lord, recognizing your sovereignty and majesty and the source of all knowledge, and we ask you to bless our decisions and how we come to them, Lord. Lord, bless the leader and the deputy leader as they give a political steer to this meeting. We give thanks for all that they do representing these islands and all the meetings over the course of the year. Bless them and their families and give them the words to articulate and improve the well-being of all of those who live in these islands. Lord, bless the Chief Executive, the Clerk, and all the officers involved in the day-to-day administration of the Council. We ask you to bless them and uphold them in what can be a very challenging and stressful environment. Lord, bless every member of this Council, every councillor. We give thanks to you for giving us this great opportunity to represent our communities. We thank you and we ask you to continually bless us and uphold us in the work that we do. We especially remember Councillor Robertson at this time and his family with the family bereavement, Lord. We remember him and his family and commend them to you in this very difficult time for them, and that you will give them comfort and that you will make your presence known to them at this time. Lord, remember our community at this time. Lord, we commend them into you, those who are struggling day to day with physical, mental, and even spiritual challenges. Lord, this is an anxious time, and we ask you to pour your spirit down into our communities, that there would be a return to the truth. Lord, go before us now and let us always remember our chief purpose is to glorify your holy and ever blessed name. Forgive our many sins, for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. The meeting is now being recorded and will be made available on the Collier's website following the meeting. Items 16, 19 and 20 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and I'm ruling items 5, 6, 11, 12 and 16, Appendix 1, as urgent to allow the matters to be considered prior to the next meeting of the committee. Item 1 is the minute of the meeting of the 26th of April 2023. And that is for noting. Approval. Sorry, thank you. Approval for accuracy. No lights or hands. Approved, thank you. Item 2 is declaration of interest. So you're invited to declare an interest in any agenda item at this point, and if you become aware of an interest during the meeting, then I would ask that you declare it at that time. When declaring an interest, it would be helpful if members could indicate briefly the nature of that interest. This helps to make our decision making more open and transparent for the public. So item 3 on the agenda is the minute of the meeting of Human Resources Subcommittee on 13th June 2023, and that's for noting. Agreed, thank you. Item 4, minute of the meeting of the Budget Board of the 22nd of May 2023, and again that's for noting. Thank you. Item 5, minute of the meeting of the Community Safety Board of the 7th of June 2023, and that's for approval of the recommendations at items 3, 5 and 7 of the minute. Of approval? Yeah, okay, thank you. Item 6, minute of the meeting of Committee na Gaelic of 13th June 2023. And again, that's for approval of the recommendations at items 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Do you have approval? Yes. Thank you very much. We will move on to performance management. So the following reports provide an overview of the business plans and related performance issues at the end of the fourth quarter 2022-2023. Malcolm Burr, Norman MacDonald and Calamian McKeever will highlight key points and answer questions on their respective remits. And first up will be the Chief Executive, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few items to bring to your attention, just for noting really. 37 actions against the business plan and 29 key performance indicators, KPIs. These are largely corporate, they're not all departmental, but the actions are departmental. So you can see 35 out of the 37 are on track and 2 are showing amber. Nothing to concern you there, I'll cover these later. KPIs of the 29-25 are on track and 4 are off track, and budget-wise, we're doing fine. So moving to 6.1, these are the 2 ambers. I don't think there's anything to concern you there. It's 90% or 92% against 100% targets. So I don't think there's anything there to worry about. On the KPIs, the corporate KPIs, you can see travel expenses, yours and officers are above target, but the target was within the COVID restriction period, so it's not truly realistic. A true comparison would be against the last full year of normal business before COVID, and that's comparing very favourably. So we'll include more realistic comparators in that figure. So these are the KPIs. Looking to the benchmarking framework priorities in paragraph 7, sickness absence, of course, sickness absence is through the roof across Scotland, but the figures are for 21-22. In other words, for the year coming out of COVID, and they were uniformly very high. Ours are higher than average because as you all know, we employ everybody who provides Comhairle services as an employee. We don't outsource services such as nurseries, such as social care, where absences are traditionally higher. So we will always be at the top end of that table. But it's not something, of course, we're complacent about in any way. It's monitored by HR subcommittee, and we are seeing an improvement in this year. So these figures will come through to you. These figures will come through to you in due course. One thing I should have said at 6.2, it doesn't show in the report, going back to the KPIs. If you look at the performance report, there are only 4 KPIs showing red. In the published report, there are 5, and I haven't had the chance to amend that. And that was the percentage of young people participating in accredited youth work, which was down as a red, which in reality is a green. It was simply that the information hadn't been reported in time. So if you're looking at the report on the agenda, there's 5 reds, but in truth there's only the 4 set out here. So I should have covered that. One complaint in the last quarter, which was resolved. Budget-wise, we're okay, and the details are given at 9.1. Underspend of 143, but 73 is European Social Fund. So after that, there's a positive variance of 70, and the carry forwards will be set out later in Mr. MacDonald's report. So moving on to the policy areas, I don't intend to go through these in a lot of detail because they're set out with sufficient information. I think I'll just take questions on these. But 11.4, Project Neptune, I think, is coming to the end of its reporting. By the end of June, we should have Angus Campbell's report to the Minister, so we should know in the early summer what action is proposed to be taken. There, as we know, it's political commitment and resources and good officers who deliver change, but structures are also important, and that's what That's what Project Neptune's about. Otherwise, otherwise we can be reduced to dependency and lobbying from the sidelines. So we hope that Project Neptune will produce some different structures which will involve the Comhairle and other local authorities at the stage of planning, design and commissioning of ferries, not just reacting to circumstances, however well we do that. So that's we await that report. There is so much we could talk about with ferries. There have been a lot of meetings, Leader, as you know personally, in the last few weeks. We had the board of CMAL, Caledonian Maritime Assets Limited, here last week. And that was attended by the two Harris councillors and myself. And you can imagine the discussion that was had there. Moving on to 11.5, that's just an update on local heat and energy efficiency strategy. That'll be with us by the end of the year. So that's just by way of an update. 11.15 sets out the successful bids to the Islands programme. Some very useful sums there for these projects. I won't cover growth deal for the islands because that's covered in the Deputy Chief Executive's report, although I will be presenting that. Mr. McKee was covering it at the meeting with MG Alapa today, so I'll cover that when we come to it. Finally, I think National Care Service, very briefly, the report says that the introduction of the bill has been delayed until autumn 2023, and you may have noticed that that has now been delayed until early 2024 to allow much needed further consultation with, amongst others, local authorities and really the whole sector on what the bill is intended to achieve and the best means that could be used to achieve these ends. So I'll stop there, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from members? No, I see no lights. Oh, sorry. Councillor Crichton.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief Executive, for your report. At 10.1, you've identified 21 operational threats. I wasn't able to go on to the interplan site. Would they be in there, these operational threats?
Yes, there will be. There will be, Chair. Yes. There's also the risk. There's also the risk strategy coming up later in the agenda.
Yeah.
So
yeah, would the need perhaps for resilience and succession planning within the organisation be identified as one of those operational threats?
Oh yes, very much so. I mean, workforce strategy is one of our key. It's not a challenge because we do it very well. I mean, our succession planning has been remarkably successful in recent years. With the result, we have only one senior post vacant, and that of course is the director for strategic finance. And we have managed to fill all of our senior posts remarkably well. That is not the position, I can assure you, in across most councils at present. But it's something we need to continue to plan for, because our current structure, Chair, as you know, is based on planned retirements. These planned retirements are coming to fruition. I've always said the next structure should be medium term. It should take you hopefully into the middle of the next term. And I look forward to going through the organisational structure review with members in seminar form in the very near future.
Thank you. Just another. Thank you for that. In terms of 11.1, the ferries issue, of course, it's all around us. But I'd be interested to find out what is COSLA's position on this situation. A representative body, local authorities, have they come together in unison to support us and provide any sort of representation or lobbying to the Scottish Government, given the plight we have with the ferry services? It's almost as if they're becoming an echo chamber of the Scottish Government.
Yeah, COSLA is a political organisation, and I will defer to the leader, but I would have to give a personal observation that I think COSLA's position on transport issues could be stronger. I think it has been seen too much as a as a local issue for local authorities to do what they do very well, which is individual local representations. But the connectivity of Scotland through transport services is absolutely critical, as we know, to national as well as local well-being. And I think there is room for further strengthening of the COSLA response. That would be my personal observation.
Was there an opportunity for the independent group to pursue that? Because perhaps Leader, you could have a date.
On that one, Chair, I'll definitely defer to you.
Yeah, it's something we have brought up as the independent group, but it, like Mr. Burr said, it's something that needs a bit more support from COSLA, I would suggest. We're taking it through other channels such as Comhairle, Islands Group, the UK Islands Forum. So there are other forums that we're giving a bit more priority. But yes, COSLA is an area we've raised it could do with being given a bit more of a profile. So the next meeting is at the end of the month, so I'll ensure it's on the agenda for the independent group. Anyone else in the chamber? Councillor Hussain online.
Wanted to unmute myself first. Thanks very much, Chair. Just some clarifications from the Chief Executives on, I think, point 11.10, the growth deal, the island growth deal. Are all the initial identified projects that were to be funded on target to be delivered? Then, because I mean, we hear some in the community that some project may have changed use or they're faltered a bit, but I'm just wondering if the funding still be allocated to the same project, or will it be reevaluated and used for something else? Another point on 11.16, the cost of living. Do we have any feedback of how the money was spent and what impact that funding had achieved with the most vulnerable members of our community? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Safad. We're covering Islands Growth Deal later on in the agenda, so we'll maybe come back to that then, unless Chief Executive wants to answer that one just now. But you can come to 11.16, which was the emergency
cost of living
fund. Yeah, Chief Executive.
Yes, cost of living. We will be asking those recipients of grant funding to take us through how that's been used and what effect it's had against the criteria that were set and against the programmes which they intended that funding to be used for. So we would take that into account before embarking on a further round, if that's the political wish, later in the year. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, so if it's okay, Mr. Staff, we'll come back to the Islands Growth Deal question at the agenda item.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Angus, Councillor McCormick. Are you hearing us, Angus?
Thank you, Leader. I'm not a member of your committee. I wanted to make reference to the National Care Review. I'm very pleased that it's been postponed for further consideration. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking for something that, like the National Health Service, is free at the point of care. One of the issues that I haven't seen discussed much in public about it, I don't think, is the fact that most of our care in Scotland is currently produced privately, and consequently around about 30% of the money that is being invested in care in Scotland is profit. Have there been any discussions around how we overcome that situation?
Chief Executive, you're breaking up a bit there, Angus. But I think
that's a fundamental question of National Care Service. You've heard my view on many occasions that, despite I think the aims which this chamber supports, that there is provision on the same basis as a National Health Service. That's implicit in the title. It is essentially a commissioning model, and it does envisage considerable private sector involvement in the delivery of care. Now, that is one of the big questions which I think we would say have been inadequately dealt with in the initial consultation, and which, not surprisingly, now need to be dealt with in greater detail. What does that mean? Does that mean that wages in the care sector rise to the equivalent of public sector? Is it determined by the market? What happens when there is market failure? And how do we then see, and if the answer to some of these questions is that we stay as we are, how then is a sustainable social care structure to be delivered? The view of this chamber, I think, and certainly of most chief executives, is that there has to be a complete revaluation of these vital jobs. And I know we all support that as far as we're able to do, and this council has done as much as it can. And indeed, at Human Resources Subcommittee only yesterday, a very significant step forward was made there, as you will see in the minutes. So that's a critical question. And I am glad to see an extension of this bill's introduction into the new year to allow many of these fundamentals to be properly debated, because I don't think they have been thus far.
Thank you. Angus, we want to come back.
Just very briefly, and I thank the Chief Executive for his response. It troubles me greatly that people should profit from caring for their own people. Really, that doesn't seem like with me at all. And I think that is one of the fundamentals that the Scottish Government has to deal with in addressing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. Councillor Murray, online, Gordon.
Thanks, Lord Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, and thank you for taking me in. I just wanted to ask, Audit Scotland made a number of recommendations in their audit paper, Best Value Assurance report, and I just wondered how these were progressing, these recommendations. Thank you.
They're on this very agenda, Chair, in the item on code of corporate governance, and of course that they come through the audit and scrutiny committee as well. So that's a continual programme of reporting, and I will cover that in the item 9 on code of corporate governance, if I may.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, Angus, is that a legacy hand? Yeah, I think it is. Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor MacDonald, Noddy.
Thanks, Chair. I think we're all aware of the difficulties of accessing care, particularly when we have parents or relatives who aren't in or are in a position where they can afford to pay for care and end up in a situation where care packages get sought. And the Comhairle have done an exceptional job in delivering these care packages, out with their own care system. But the whole thing, the whole financial implication of having a relative in care can be quite debilitating for many families, and the difficulty and the myriad form filling exercises that need to be undertaken to access the care that the Comhairle do provide and other councils do provide, and the absence of responsibility with Scottish Government and UK Government in delivering a care package that's free at the point of need, which is what we all want, but we sadly don't have. There are so many hurdles that we need to go through to access care packages for the folk who need the care. And if I'm to understand correctly, we're still in the middle of a debate with SG about centralising care, which is the huge fear, I think, for a lot of us here in the Western Isles, where the immediate accessibility of our own officers to deal with our needs and our relatives' needs was addressed very professionally within the Comhairle, within our officer capacity here in the Western Isles. If we lose that, it's going to significantly impact a lot of what goes on here. We've just built a new care home up in Goathill Road, at the end of Goathill Road there, and we've got a situation where we might be losing our own control over our own care delivery. can I ask where we are in our negotiations and our input into the Scottish Government deliberations over centralisation of care, and or do we predict that this is going to happen whether we like it or not, and we're going to lose our own control over our own care delivery?
Yeah, I'll bring Chief Executive in.
Yes, very happy to answer these points, Chair. As you know from my initial presentation on National Care Service, I felt at the time I was being unduly pessimistic, and I'm not given to pessimism about what that structure would mean, while recognising, as we all do, that having a true national care service along the lines of NHS is a good thing. It eliminates all of these points that Mr. McDonald's mentioned about bureaucracy, about administration, about financial pressure, all of these things we support. The problem with it is under the current structures, it takes control away. Ministers are absolutely clear that they wish to be accountable for the delivery of social care, but that is accountability in the way that ministers are accountable for, dare I say, ferry services. It reduces local authorities, which are elected, and local communities, which are service users, to the status of petitioners. And that was where it was fundamentally wrong, because councils generally run care services well. And as Mr. McDonald's shown, we can make changes when we're empowered to do that. So it is absolutely fundamental here. This is not a bureaucratic discussion about which structure X being better than structure Y. It is about democratic accountability and local delivery. That's absolutely critical. Where are we? We couldn't have put in a stronger submission at the start. It is continual chipping away by COSLA, after COSLA's been very good on this. Solace, councils, political parties, trade unions, third sector, everybody has said, this may be a good idea in principle, but this is not going to deliver what you claim you seek from this. So hence, I think the continual putting it off for further review. There is an Islands engagement group, which I attend, which meets periodically. Shetland, Orkney, ourselves, and some others. We input into that, and I think I wouldn't go further than to say our representations are received, but everybody is on this case, 3 Scottish Parliament committees. There is plenty of opportunity on this one to have our voice heard, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. Happy with that, Norrie. Yeah. I think the other thing that probably come up in a few conversations today is the work we're doing on Single Island Authority. I mean, there's ways we can do things locally whilst fitting into possibly a national care service that takes all the good bits that we're looking for, but giving us a bit more local control. So I see no other hands up or lights on. Okay, in which case we'll move on to strategic finance, accountancy and exchequer services, and bring in yourself, Norman.
Thank you, Chair. As I've said at previous meetings, our business plan revolves around budget monitoring, accounts, transactional things like paying wages, creditor benefits. So there's no real development tasks or policy items to report on. In terms of the actions, there are a couple of actions that are off track, and they're both corporate actions which will be taken forward over the next period. One in terms of participatory budgeting, which will be taken forward along with the budget board, and one customer strategy, which corporate management team agreed last week that we would start that off with a self-assessment on customer needs and how we deal with customers. So we'll take that forward there. Apart from that, nothing of concern. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, participatory budgeting will be an interesting one for the budget board to work through. So are there any questions or comments from members? Yeah, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair, for letting me in. I'm going to be awkward here. Can I ask what the immediate effect of a £750,000 overspend on gritting is going to have on the council's finances, or the long-term effect even?
I'll bring Norman in.
Well, we've known quite early in the year that we were going to have an overspend on gritting. So At the moment, it's just been funded from reserves, which, you know, obviously does have a potential impact as we go forward. I mean, at the budget setting, we did point out that the winter maintenance budget was underfunded, that we need to address that going forward. But up until now, we've managed on a year-to-year basis because the underspend was, you know, at a lower level. But that's $750,000. It's now becoming unsustainable. So it will have to be considered as part of the next budget setting.
Yeah, and we've started to use right into our reserves as well, and they're not finite, obviously. So the knock-on effect of another poor winter is going to have a fairly substantial knock-on effect. Yeah, thanks for that, Norman. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Before it was manageable numbers with some reserves. Now reserves are depleted. It's going to be some tough decisions over the next few while. Again, the budget board's going to have a big part to play in that to get us to the next stage. No other hands or lights, so we'll move on to investment delivery. And I believe it's Dan online. Oh, Chief Executive. Yeah, Chief Executive.
Yes, apologies, Chair, from Mr. McPhail. He has a personal commitment this afternoon. The report is here, like all these reports, for noting, just in terms of administration. 8.1 shows the section's budget is in order and there were no complaints in the last quarter. I'll leave Barra and Battersea Community Campus, if you don't mind, since that's on the agenda as a separate item. So the other two main items, not surprisingly, that Mr. McPhail would want to bring to your attention are the Lewis Residential Care development at Goat Hill, and into which people are moving. Were moved yesterday and are moving tomorrow. And I hope we'll have a chance to look around that excellent project very soon. The other is Lochmaddy. Work's gone, I think, a little slower than had been anticipated, but it is forecast to be finished for August 2023. And there is detail on both of these projects. We will, of course, look for a formal opening of Goat Hill, I think, whenever best suits the service, which is likely to be, I think, in August.
Okay.
Happy to take such questions as I can. If there are technical questions, I'll refer them to Mr. McPhail.
Yeah, we can email questions on. Yeah, it's good to see the people moving into Goat Hill. It's a very significant milestone, but obviously a little while to go with the project yet, but it is very good to see people taking up the bed space. Any questions or comments from members? No. Okay, in that case, we will move on to the Deputy Chief Executive report. And again, Chief Executive, to cover that.
Yes, you'll be fed up hearing from me today. Chair, again, a report for noting, a very detailed report, and I don't intend to take you through all of it, but it's a very comprehensive report on culture and heritage, on economic development, on housing. A significant discussion at housing, of course, at yesterday's Sustainable Development Committee, on all sections of the this part of Chief Executive's department. What I would like to bring to your attention, the Islands Growth Deal, since that's been raised. In answer to Councillor Hussein's question, it is a 10-year programme, it must be remembered. There are equal amounts of funding delivered by Scottish Government on behalf of itself and UK Government on equal 10-year amounts. Now, we all know construction inflation costs generally are higher than they were. The costs of all these projects is not going to stay the same as it was when these deal projects were agreed. So there will inevitably be some readjustment. Some projects, of course, inevitably will fall away in 10 years or will change or will not be deliverable or will have moved on to other things. So it's not absolutely fixed, but of course we will come back to the Chamber with any changes and to the Joint Committee, which has delegated authority on behalf of the Comhairle to make adjustments. The three councils have, of course, agreed, as far as they are able to do, that the principle of a third, and the funding will be maintained, whatever happens to individual projects. But they're all moving forward. There are no delays. Full business cases are are in hand, and we're on time with both governments. This is one of the deal growth deals which has moved ahead entirely according to timetable, and that's to be commended. In terms of this committee, the big project moving forward for us is the full business case for the Island Centre for net zero, and that's shared among the three councils.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the Deputy Chief Executive's report? I see no hands or lights, but as you can tell from all four of the performance monitoring updates, there's a lot happening, a lot of good things happening within the council. So it's good to get these things and keep on top of them. All reports are for noting. Do we agree to note? Agreed. Thank you. Okay. Now we move on to the growth deal for the island's actual report, governance and risk sharing arrangements. So this report seeks approval of an amendment to the island's growth deal governance agreement. The full deal agreement with UK and Scottish government was signed by the three islands councils on 21st of January 2023, and the Comhairle acts as the lead authority and accountable body for the islands deal in terms of the relationship with UK and Scottish government. There are potential liabilities which may arise for the Comhairle due to its role as accountable body, and it would be fair for those liabilities to be shared appropriately between the three constituent authorities. And in view of this, approval is sought for an amendment to the governance agreement as detailed in paragraph 6.5 of the report. The amendment seeks to ensure that each constituent authority is responsible for any liabilities which relate to a project in their own geographical area, or that liabilities be shared proportionally when these relate to cross-island projects. I'll ask Mr. Burr to speak to the report and answer members' questions.
Yes, I think you've said it. You've really said it all. Chair, it is obviously fair that liability is shared across the three islands councils, particularly for projects relating to Orkney and Shetland, and the clause at paragraph 6.5, for those who want to read these kind of things, is there. That's been agreed among the three heads of legal services and the three chief executives. So a similar report is going to the chambers in Kirkwall and Lerwick this month. So you're asked to agree this amendment to the growth deal, which is very much in the Comhairle's best interests today. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very sensible manoeuvre, I believe. Any questions or comments from members? No, agreed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9, this report provides an update on implementation of the Local Code of Corporate Governance Action Plan and seeks Comhairle approval of the Code of Corporate Governance and Action Plan 2022 to 23. A narrative of the action plan is appended to the report, and the action plan for 22-23 retains the theme of service redesign, but includes new actions on communication and the community planning partnership. All the actions developed relate to the best value assurance review undertaken in 2022. The actions detailed are under Dimension 1, Community Focus, Dimension 2, Service Delivery Arrangements, and Dimension 6, Engaging with Local People and Other Stakeholders. And I believe Norma Skinner will answer members' questions as well from online.
Chair, I'll maybe introduce this briefly. You know, I always commend this report to members, particularly new members, because Appendix 1, which is the Code of Corporate Governance itself, is an absolute encyclopedia of corporate governance. And if you need to find anything, or you're asked anything, or anybody challenges you about our governance, there is a link to every possible document here and how it fits in to the local code. So it really is a useful cut out and keep for these aspects, and I really commend it to you. But why do we do this? This and the annual governance statement. If you go to 6.1, there's the 6 principles there. I won't read them out to you. That's why we do it. But as important are the appendices. Appendix 1, as I've said, is the code. Appendix 2 is the action plan, a narrative on the action plan for 21-22. And then at Appendix 3 is the action plan for 22-23. And all those actions relate to the best value assurance review undertaken in 2022. So this is one of the means, in response to Councillor Gordon Murray's question, this is one of the means by which you monitor progress. It's by no means the only the only means. And of course, Audit Scotland will undertake its own monitoring of how we're getting on with the with implementing the BVAR recommendations. But the main committee there, of course, is Audit and Scrutiny, and that will have the primary role of assessing our compliance with the recommendations. So I won't take you through appendices 2 and 3. They're there for you to read. But you will see in the comments in Appendix 3, there's clear reference to the BVAR report. Those recommendations which relate to corporate governance. There are, of course, other recommendations on strategic decision making and the like, and these will be picked up elsewhere. Happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members? No. Okay, the only thing I would say maybe in summary of this item is we're going to be reviewing the corporate strategy pretty soon through different fora. So it might be useful for members if they want to see how we're progressing with the current corporate strategy, then this might be a good place to refer to prior to coming into that process. So that recommendation is for approval, to have approval. Yep, thank you. Thank you very much. Item 10, Corporate Business Continuity Plan. This report seeks approval of the Corporate Business Continuity Plan. Service business plans were approved in February 23 as part of the budget working papers. Service Business Continuity Plan feed into the Corporate Business Continuity Plan, which is appended to the report and which, in the event of a major incident, assists the Comhairle incident team to deal with the incident and effectively minimise disruption to the service. Rebecca MacLeod will answer questions from members. Rebecca.
I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks. Any questions or comments from members? No? Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Rebecca. Item 11 is, sorry, that's for approval at paragraph 3.1. I assume that's approval from members. Yep, thank you. Item 11, this report provides a detail of the Comhairle's revenue outturn for 22-23 and seeks approval for the departmental carry forwards. A summary of the revenue outturn, which shows an indicative unaudited deficit of 3.1 million as detailed at Appendix A to the report. There were budget variations across services, but the principal reasons for this deficit are the increased pay award and utility costs funded from reserves and the overspend on winter maintenance. Appendix B provides details of the Comhairle reserves, including those committed for specific purposes. At 31st March 23, there were 1.5 million of reserves available to assist with the forward budget strategy after allowing for the policy of holding a minimum of 3.5 million in reserve. And Norman is available to speak to the report and answer members' questions. Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's any surprises in the report. We've been reporting through the quarterly monitoring and the impact of the inflation and high wage increases on our outturn figure through the year, and that's pretty much where we've ended up. There's probably just a couple of points to highlight. The increase in interest rates, so it's obviously not good for households and people who have mortgages. For us, it's meant that our income and investments has increased hugely. When we set the budget in February last year, interest rates that we were receiving were 0.01%, and by the end of the year, we were receiving 4.2% on our investments. So what that meant for us is that we had £1 million of extra income. On the other side of that, as Councillor MacDonald mentioned, we've had a big overspend on winter maintenance, so that the outturn on that ended up being 737 over. We were predicting about $750,000. So that's the lucky, I suppose, break on interest income has offset that cost. So the report contains a lot of information about departmental spend, carry forwards and specific carry forwards. I don't intend going into that, but we'll take any questions if anyone has any. In terms of reserves, as you said, the overall effect is that we've got 1.5 million of reserves available to help with the future budgets, in addition, of course, to the 3.5 million which we hold. The use of these reserves and what minimum balance we hold going forward will be considered as part of the medium-term financial strategy, which is currently being developed. And the strategy at the moment shows that we'll probably have a deficit in the region of 7 million in the next financial year. So obviously, we started looking at how we can address that gap already. So obviously, there's going to be very difficult decisions to be made between now and next February. I'll leave it there, but happy to take any questions on content of the report.
Yes. Thank you very much, Norman. Any questions or comments from members? Councillor Murray, Gordon Murray online.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. Just a little bit of disappointment in seeing that the Education Department has an underspend of 696,000, and most of that will be transferred into the general reserve. You know that we took some, well, there was difficult decisions made to cut 100k off the additional special needs budget, and it looks like we should have not made that cut, given the fact that we had such a large underspend. And you'll probably know yourself, Chair, that the ASN figures look like they're going to increase. So we really need to be increasing the budget to ASN, not reducing it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I believe the decision we took in the budget setting was about savings that could be made by the department at the time. But I'll bring in Councillor, Mr. MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. If you look at paragraph 7.15 of the report, it shows that 525 of the underspend that Councillor Murray is referring to is being carried forward by the department for a list of projects that they have there. I think it's just over about 170 that's going back to the centre.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's going to be a lot of very difficult decisions over the next year or so. So the ASN one last year wasn't an easy one to take, but we took it, and I think there's going to be a lot more over the next wee while for us to consider. This sorry, Councillor McNeill.
Patient, but they took a bit of an unexpected hit with the charges, and you know, it would be since we're proposing to help us sports centres and gyms and things, could we not have fitted the patient into in this a body worth supporting?
Thank you, Councillor McNeill. I'm not sure what you're referring to in this report.
Well, yeah, there were underspends, and but you know, with and the groups that were supported. So just
Okay, where's that? Sorry, I'm not seeing it.
I'm on the right thing, but we're looking at Slanjava and.
Okay, yeah, 715.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
715.
Yeah, sorry, I just wasn't sure where in the report
Yeah, sorry.
you're seeing it. Well, again, this is a proposal that's come from the department. If there was to be any changes, I suppose they'd have to come from amendments to be put forward.
Okay.
Or could it be worked through the department? Maybe we'd have this conversation with the department. Yeah. Yeah, Derek.
Chair, I'm assuming what Councillor McNeill is referring to is the decision taken in the previous series to reduce funding over 3 years to the fashion. Is that?
Well, it's what was actually brought to my attention. They got unexpected bills.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's different. What I
Yes,
because
for the fashion that they hadn't factored in for, and you know, being a charity, they hadn't applied, so that they're getting bills between 800 to 1,000 pounds for their face week. So
I focus. Yeah, no, wasn't that report. No. Yeah, I think we could have that conversation with the department. Obviously, they've got their list of proposals here.
yeah,
Yeah, so we can follow that up. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No, in that case, recommendations for approval are 3.1 of the report. Approved. Thank you. Item 12. This report provides detail of the final outturn of the 2018 to 23 capital programme. A summary of the financial position of the 18 to 23 capital programme is shown in the table at paragraph 2.1 of the report. Expenditure in 22-23 total £28.9 million, bringing total expenditure for the 18 to 23 programme to £108.1 million. Appendix 1 to the report shows the detail at the project level of the outturn. The budgets for projects that were underway or committed at 31st of March 23 will be carried forward to the 23-28 programme, and a list of those projects are included at Appendix 2 to the report. And again, Norman will answer members' questions on this. Norman, are you want to say anything? I don't see any lights on. Norman?
Thank you, Chair. There's not really much to add. It's pretty much the same as we've been reporting in the last couple of quarters. Just a couple of things to highlight, maybe. In 2020, we recognised that the initial estimate of capital grant was a bit optimistic. So there was going to be an oversubscription of the programme. So at that time, it was agreed that the shortfall would be funded from prudential borrowing, funded through earmark reserves which are no longer required, and from future loan charge savings. The alternatives you see on the summary at the front is an overspend of about 5.7 million. So that's the amount that will have to be funded from prudential borrowing. Detailed work on the future loan charges will be underway over the summer. So I would hope to report back in September on where we are with these loan charges and what money might be available for prudential borrowing going forward. The only other item to highlight is the projects carried forward. There's 28.2 million, as you said. A significant amount of this 21 million is for the Barra and Battersea campus project, and also projects that are funded from capital grant for things like Lochmaddy, Bridges Fund, Islands Fund, Regeneration Capital Fund. So we have to carry that forward. So there's only about 7 million of general smaller projects being carried forward. So happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Norman. Any questions or comments from members? No. Okay, thank you very much. Item 13. This report seeks members' views in relation to the proposed changes to council tax on second and empty homes and thresholds for non-domestic rates to inform a response to the consultation being undertaken by the Scottish Government. The consultation specifically seeks views on how local taxation can help bring empty homes back into use through the provision of additional powers to councils, allowing them discretion to charge up to 100% premium, double the full rate, on council tax for second homes, and charge more than 100% premium on council tax for second homes and long-term empty homes. The second element of the consultation seeks views on whether the NDR self-catering accommodation thresholds are appropriate or should be amended to ensure that the property owners within communities are making a fair financial contribution to the local public services and the economy. And again, Norman MacDonald will speak to the report. Norman.
Thank you, Chair. This report has already been to the Budget Board and to the Housing Member Officer Working Group, but the reasons that this committee is to gauge your own views if you agree with the views stated by these two bodies, if that is what we will submit as our consultation. So rather than go through the report, I think what I'll do is go through the main points raised at these other two meetings. So the first question was about the definition of a second home. At the moment, if you occupy a property for 25 days a year, it's classified as a second home. So the question was, would you increase that or would you keep it the same? So the view that came out of the Budget Board was that it should be increased to 50 days a year. The second point was, would we charge a premium on a second home? The response was yes. So then the question was, by what percentage would you increase it? So there was a range of percentages suggested in the consultation. So there was a lot of discussion on this topic, but there was an initial suggestion of 300%. So that's what was maintained through the meeting. Charge a premium higher than the current 100% on empty homes. Yes, and that was maintained at the same 300% as the second homes. The reason for that was the empty home charge needs to be the same or higher than the second home's charge, as that's what a second homeowner will be moved on to if they don't qualify. There was a question on council tax exemptions. The main discussion on that item was in relation to agricultural dwellings. Many of these lie empty for a long time, and no charges are applied to these if they're classed as agricultural properties. So there's no incentive really to get them back into use. So discussion concluded that an exemption limit of 5 years should be applied to these properties. There was a question on thresholds for self-catering accommodation. Currently, a property has to be available for 140 days and let out for 70 days in order to qualify as self-catering. And it was agreed to increase these thresholds to 100 days and 180 days. The reasoning for that was there's an extended tourist season, and the 180 days represents around 6 months, which covers the main tourist season. And it was also felt that increasing the available days might encourage more use of these properties and might bring more business into the islands as well. And other points were raised. Self-catering properties meeting these criteria are within the NDR system. So many of them benefit from the small business bonus scheme. So in effect, they don't pay council tax and they don't pay rates either. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there. And the only other point that came out was that there should be local discretion over charging. For example, depending on issues in particular geographical areas, it would be seen as a tool for getting properties into use. So, for example, if there's a particular problem in an area with no housing being available for local residents, you could charge a higher premium in these areas. These are the main points. So I think the purpose was to sort of have more discussion if members wish, and to sort of come to a view, is this what we want to put forward as our contribution to the consultation? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone wish to come in on any of the points or stats or figures that were raised there? Or to add to the discussion, or are we happy for that to be the response from the coroner? Yeah, I see no hands or lights. Sorry, Donald.
Thank you, Chair. Just about 7.3, the increase in charge from 50% to 100% would generate additional income of 400k per annum, of which 335k would be reinvested for housing. Is that a statutory obligation on us? Why the ring-fence? Would that not just go into the general revenue budget?
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I think that money refers to Scottish legislation, additional council tax income on second homes. The income that we gain from that, we have to put towards housing initiatives.
Yeah,
it's
a statutory obligation.
Yeah.
Thank you. See no other hands or lights. So in that case, the recommendations for approval at 3.1 of the report approved. Thank you. Item 14, this report recommends the write-off of irrecoverable debts totaling £61,312.98 in respect of council tax, sundry debts and housing benefit overpayments be written off. Every effort has been made to recover debts due, and write-off recommendations are made only when all recovery routes have been exhausted. Again, Norman will speak to this report and answer members' questions.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing really to add. We can't really go into discussion on individual debts anyway, so it's just a standard report.
Yeah.
There's probably more on it than in previous quarters because we missed the last committee.
Okay, of course, yeah. Okay. No lights or hands, so recommendation for approval at 3.1. Approved, thank you. Item 15, this report seeks to review and approve the revised corporate violence and aggression policy appended to the report. The policy details the responsibilities which arise from statutory obligations and follows guidance from the Health and Safety Executive in relation to the requirement to report violent or aggressive incidents and how to support anyone involved in an incident. I have Jean MacDonald available to answer members' questions. Jean, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the violence and aggression policy has been reviewed as part of the 3-yearly review and also a timely review because the Health and Safety Executive has updated their violence and aggression guidance and updated their website with some examples. The policy details the requirement for the Comhairle to assess the risk of violence and aggression for employees and implement control measures to reduce that risk. And it also details the requirement for reporting violent and aggressive incidents. Excuse me. Some of the changes to the policy was this policy acts as an overarching catch-all because there are departmental policies. In education, there's the improving behaviour policy, and in health and social care, there's the challenging behaviour policy. So this acts as a catch-all supporting these departmental policies. The risk assessment procedure has been updated, so we included a link for the risk assessment procedure, and we've also added a link for how to report incidents for employees. We've got an electronic incident management portal for reporting, so it's highlighted the need for that. We do request that all incidents are reported to ourselves, and also some, in fact, have to be reported to the Health and Safety Executive, so that's included within the policy as well. We've updated the occupational health provision and also just updated some terminology to ensure that all the protected characteristics are considered and include a reference for home and hybrid workers. So I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you very much, Jean. Councillor Mustafa Hussain.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks very much, Jean. I mean, with the interchange of workforce between the callers workforce and some of our third sector and other partners, like especially in care with taxa and different things, how much interchange is there between, you know, how do we make sure that our workers are following similar policy in terms of especially training and things? How can we help them to benefit from the same thing? So we have homogeneous. Is there anything like that to working between different agencies? Do we support them?
Yes, absolutely. Between the departments, there is a lot of interagency working to ensure that the risk of violence and aggression is being addressed. The training that we have, we've got corporate training in the form of CAM training, and we also have violence and aggression at work and de-escalation training, which can be tailored for different departments. So absolutely could be tailored for third sector organisations as well. The main point of the policy and the departmental ones is really about assessing the risk and ensuring that the necessary controls are in place, ensuring that the employees are trained and informed and well advised on how to report incidents, and also the support that management should have afterwards. So yeah, it is a catch-all and can be put across different agencies if required.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. 2 points I wanted to ask, and one you've already answered about training for staff in reporting, because while the portal made a big difference in my experience in my last year in my previous post, sometimes people did make mistakes with the filling in various sections, and it would go to the wrong place and go to the wrong people, and it could end up that if you were managing it, it doubled your work really, because you were desperately trying to ensure things were going to the right place when they were being reported. The other point is publicising this, and while I think it's important that obviously the workforce are aware of it, those areas of our organisations which are public facing, I think it would be really good to have large posters saying we don't tolerate violence towards our employees, or verbal violence like you see at shops, airports, ferry, etc. I think, and that includes schools, because sometimes people, when they are dealing with their members of staff, are angry or emotional or distraught, and they can be, perhaps not meaning to, but they can be aggressive. And I think to have that protection, to have it shown very visibly, to people coming into any of our offices or organisations or schools, that we won't tolerate that sort of behaviour. I think it's really important for the public to see that. Thanks.
Jean, were you want to come in on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Francis. Yeah, initially you mentioned about the portal. So we have the incident management system and an additional portal for employees to report incidents on. It's a fairly new system. We introduced it over the last couple of years. And initially there was that labour-intensive part of rolling it out and training employees and managers on how to use it. But we have found, and I think you agree with me there, we found that it's more beneficial to have more information, because we're able to identify trends, in particular, like you said, within education, we're able to identify trends. If you have high numbers of violence and aggression, you can create reports where you can identify potential trigger days, times. So the health and safety team have been working with service managers to try and analyse the data and use that to put appropriate control measures in place. So absolutely, we're encouraging use of the portal, constantly publicising use of the portal as well. And I agree with your point as well. It would be important. I think we could put in place maybe some sort of corporate, I don't think we have this already, so we could put something in place, some sort of corporate poster that we provide to departments to display where they feel necessary. Because this policy, it's for everybody across all services, including members who are out and about in the community. And so there should, there could be supporting documentation to go along with this policy that departments can use as they see fit.
Thank you. Dr. Muddy, were you wanting to come back in?
Yeah, just to say that would be really good if I think if it was a corporate piece of, a poster, I think that really gets the message across. And I totally agree with what you said about the portal giving people a chance to be able to analyse, because it's been done in a kind of homogenous way, whereas before, when people were filling in a triplicate piece of paper, some people would write you a story and other people would give you the bare minimum, and it was very difficult to see if there were patterns. And I'm sure as it's going along, it'll be getting more and more finessed, and I'm sure it'll be a real asset. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any lights on in the chamber or hands online. So there are recommendations for approval at 3.1 of the report. Approved. Thank you. Item 16 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. Item 17, capital programme. This report is for noting and provides an update on progress with the development and delivery of the community campus project. An updated project cost plan detailing updated estimated project costs to provide for the forecasted impact of a phased approach to the development and delivery of the project is to be developed. The Project Executive Board agreed on 30th May 23 that the Chief Executive, in consultation with the Chief Executive of NHS Western Isles, the Director for Investment Delivery and the Project Director, NHS Western Isles, be authorised to agree with Hub North Scotland Limited the scope and terms of appointment for this additional work, the outcomes of which would be reported in the first instance to the Board no later than the end of June 2023. The Multi-Agency Project Board continues to meet monthly, and regular progress reports will continue to be presented to the CORE at each series. And I'll ask Mr. Burr to give us an update on the report.
Thank you, Chair. One of those reports that's for noting, but there's an awful lot to note. The Cabinet Secretary's letter is at Appendix 1, and sadly, it is clear that a replacement hospital for Barra, while it is not ruled out and is clearly envisaged at some point, it doesn't appear that that's going to happen during the Scottish Government's current capital spending review period, and that ends in March 26. So we're clear about that. So what do? We've moved on. 2.3 indicates a number of key meetings. There's been a great many key meetings, as you would expect, because we are trying to drive this forward as best we can. And the upshot is, Leader, as you've said, that there will be an updated project cost plan. Now, that's absolutely essential, that wording at 2.6. We need updated estimated project costs for the forecasted impact of a phased approach for the development and delivery of the project. Now, that in non-bureaucratic language is the core elements of the project, working with other partners, but not taking forward the hospital at this point. Obviously, we want that information now. There has to be a time for that to be given, but I'm very pleased to say that'll be provided to us no later than the end of June, and that's the end of this month. So leader, never want to break into the recess from meetings, but it may be necessary for us to gather in some form once we've analysed these figures, so that momentum is not lost until September or until the recess ends. So I'm sure members will be indulgent about that. The report's, it's an important report. I would commend it to you because it sets out the whole history of this for those who are not so familiar with it. I have to record that the prospect of a replacement hospital being off until 2026 or beyond is really unacceptable, because the current hospital was declared unfit for purpose as long ago as 2006. So that is a very long time for the community to wait. But we have the answer from Scottish Government and we must work with it. 5.5 is an important paragraph. I won't read it to you. It's important, it's for noting, but it sets out the discussions we've had with Scottish Futures Trust and others and other partners. And 5.6 sets out the outcome of the senior officers group meeting. That's the project executive board at Comhairle level, which I chair. And you'll see the actions we've taken there to acquire the land. It's an update really on all aspects of the project. So what we await now is the updated project cost plan. There is likely to be a funding gap, of course. We need to see what that is. We need to see what we can do about it. And we need to see how we can be assisted by others to bridge that gap and provide at least the non-hospital and non-GP parts of this project, because this still remains the preferred option of all the parties. And as we know, these facilities are badly needed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from members on this report? No. Okay, see no hands or lights. Just want to make a couple of comments myself. Yeah, really look forward to seeing these updated project costs, and I just want to thank the committee and the Comhairle for their support on this project and getting to this stage despite the many blows that it's taken over the last few years. The decision on the hospital is, it's devastating for the people of Barra. But like I say, I just commend the Comhairle for taking the initiative and still trying to push forward with this, and hopefully we'll get somewhere soon. And the point Malcolm made about we might have to come together in the summer, I hope you'll indulge if we do have to, just so we can keep that momentum going. There are recommendations for noting the report. Do members agree to note? Thank you. Item 18. This report seeks approval for the duty of candour annual report for 2022-23. A draft annual report containing the prescribed information is appended to the report. There were no instances of activation of the duty in the last financial year. Tim Langley is available to answer members' questions. Tim.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing really to add to your summary. Thank you. It's the annual statutory report in prescribed form, and as you say, happily there were no incidents.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members? No. Okay, reassuring report. Thank you. Item 19 and 20 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting. And that leaves item 21, reports outstanding. There are currently no reports outstanding for this committee. Just before we go into private, as I say, the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be 20th of September 2023, but we will move into private at this stage. Thank you.